Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and this is a fascinating story. Netflix is such a dominant player in Hollywood right now, or at least they were, because they came out the gate sort of just cocky, ready to pay whoever had an idea, right? And then they started overpaying, and they've paid too much for a lot of properties, and that's where we are now. They also were the first in the game to license a bunch of old content that nobody really knew what to do with on the streaming world, and they had a lot of studios that were gonna invest in Netflix but passed, and now are clearly kicking themselves for not doing it earlier. But what's interesting now is Netflix has finally succeeded in that method. Obviously, huge stock prices, etc. But now there's a lot more competition. Now Netflix is starting to lose a lot of its big library titles because their studios are realizing, why are we giving it to Netflix? We have valuable property here in the office, and it's their number one show. Let's stop giving that away. Let's see if we can get the Netflix revenue to come over here, which is fascinating because no one really understands how much revenue Netflix is actually making. They spend a fortune on content. Now, granted, they have a lot of subscribers, so they say, but they don't release numbers. No one really understands the back end of how Netflix is doing, but it's hard to not think they're not doing successfully. But what's interesting now is because there's so much competition from these other streaming sites, Apple Plus, Disney Plus, CBS, Peacock, Quibi, Tinder, they're all coming out of the woodwork to make content. So now Netflix has this interesting idea that I saw in another report in Bloomberg, where they're talking about giving actors and people, talent, filmmakers, etc., bonuses when movies succeed because they want to get people incentivized to sort of come to Netflix instead of other places. And so this is a very, early on plan, but it would be based on viewership or rewards. And so if a film does, because that was my biggest question, if Netflix doesn't reveal their viewer numbers, how do we know if it's a success? You sort of know when they want to gloat about a success, they do it. They say Adam Sandler is the highest thing, yada ever. They clearly are paying Stranger Things to come back, etc. I don't know if they're releasing the amount of data to the talent. Like, does Adam Sandler know how many streams he's getting? All fascinating questions that they don't really tell us. Nobody knows. And if Adam Sandler does know, I'm sure he's keeping it to himself just so he can continue to get paid. But we also have seen that they've started to cancel a lot of stuff, which clearly is implying it's not doing well enough for them to keep. And it's smart for them to cancel it because when you have a couple seasons, 3 seasons of a show, you did it. It's in your library. It's now a nice little poster on the scroll of what can be in your queue. Focus that money on the next one because you only get so many, every time you cancel a show and start a new show, it's a nice little poster in your database, your library. So I think they are smart in paying attention to obviously things that do well on Netflix and things don't do well. And when they do well, they throw money at Stranger Things, obviously being an example of that. Sandler still on a deck to make a lot more movies for them. So this idea of paying bonuses is interesting. And so it's as they say here, it's a departure, which has typically rewarded talent with upfront deals. The bonuses are different than Hollywood's traditional back-end arrangements where filmmakers get a percentage of box office money. Netflix's films don't get released widely theaters, so if they hit in the big screen at all, so there's no hope for big payoff. And that's typically how actors really make their bottom line. As they talk here about Robert Downey Jr., perfect example. He has made millions and millions for his role in Iron Man, and not even just for the salary, but more the back-end deal of what he gets for Endgame and all those profits. As they say, he's one of the handful of stars who makes more profit than salary based off back-end deals. And so you can't really offer those back-end deals to Netflix because they're not making extra revenue unless it's like a deal like Sirius XM, which brought in Howard Stern. And I do genuinely believe Howard Stern kept a lot of people on Sirius and brought a lot of people to Sirius to sort of stay there. And so someone like that was rewarded, and he sued them actually because he deemed that, they tried to say that, well, his people he brought in, the subscribers he brought in, and when they reached the goal, they weren't all just his, and I believe he lost actually. But I think that was an unfair deal. He definitely did bring a lot of people in. And so unless they do a deal like that, where they bring in a Robert Downey Jr. who's going to advertise some big thing, and then they're able to clock which subscribers he brings in, that would be an interesting idea. But I think we're past that. Netflix has enough subscribers. That's, obviously they want more every day, but they have enough subscribers clearly to sustain what they're putting out. So how do you do back end is what the bottom line is. So that's why they can't. And so this idea of doing bonuses is interesting. And so if something, obviously a big awards contender can do it, then they get Oscar nominations, etc., then they obviously can monetize that by saying, look, if you get an Oscar nomination for Best Picture, we'll give you another $100,000. If you get a Best Picture nomination, we'll give you $500,000. There's ways to actually have, ways to prove it. Whereas if it's successful, how are they going to do it? Netflix might, have a successful show, but then not want to admit to Robert Downey Jr. that you met your line, your bonus. I had a deal similar to that in my life. I can't get into details, but you don't know when you hit those bonuses if the company wants to lie. And so if they decide to lie, then they don't have to pay out. And then they get the reward of having that awesome blockbuster on the channel. The reality is they have paid stars and producers to come back to do, second seasons of shows. So that's sort of already a bonus, if you will. But as they say here, bonuses are a way to sort of to try to accommodate talent and to sort of give certain movies larger. They've also tried to promise these larger release windows in pursuit of awards. Like El Camino, which is coming out, the Breaking Bad movie, is going to have obviously a theatrical run. But that's not always easy for Netflix to do because, as they say here, a lot of theaters don't like the Netflix model. They refuse to let them have it for more time, and therefore they don't get as wide of a distribution, which I think is a really dumb move on Netflix's part. I don't know why they won't try it more, but I hope with the Irishman they prove like, dude, I want to see that in the theaters. I will go pay an extra $1 to go see that in the theaters. It's a big theater-going movie. I want to see it on the big screen, good sound. Why not put it out for a couple months and then have it exclusively ready for Netflix? You can have two revenues. You're a studio. Disney isn't going to, I mean, they are, but they're not going to start putting all their eggs and put all the Avengers movies straight on Disney Plus. They're doing the shows to get you enticed and come. But they're still obviously going to do theatrical runs of their big movies because they know there's money there. At the same time, you got to pay marketing for it, but you still got to do that. Netflix still has to market when the shows are out to try and get subscribers and people in. So the whole business model is fascinating. And this idea that they're now trying to focus on bonuses is really telling because it's clear they need the talent to come stay at Netflix instead of the other competitors or they're in trouble. So to see that they're trying to work out these sort of deals where they can sort of pay you extra if you succeed so a talent stays loyal is a sign that Netflix is clearly, not that they're in a bad place, but they're thinking very carefully about how to make sure we can sustain this because when they lose a lot of that licensed title, they're going to be in trouble. I've always sort of said it. Netflix is sort of the thing that's already there that I have that I'll check. But more often than not, I end up not watching anything on Netflix. The Netflix original is a very mixed bag. There's some good stuff and there's a lot of bad stuff. And they don't have a quality control like HBO does. And even Amazon Prime, I feel like, has stepped up and really doing better stuff. But the Netflix original is so vast and so all over the place. There's Tall Girl and there's Stranger Things. And I haven't seen Tall Girl. That was a knock I shouldn't have probably done, but it looks a little silly. But it's a kid's movie. But regardless, the original stamp doesn't always mean, yes, you're in for a treat. Sometimes they're cheap and stupid. What was that? Death Note, the movie they made. That was terrible. So that's the problem. You got to either stand by your quality so people know, yes, I'm down no matter what, or you got to entice talent to come and have that marquee talent like The Irishman, like Adam Sandler, like Will Smith in Bright, whether you liked it or not. That was a big deal for them, and they're going to want 10 more of those every year. So interesting development. What do you think? Do you think a bonus structure can make sense? Is that going to be complicated if they have to now release numbers? Will talent then be able to release numbers? Why won't Netflix just release the numbers? To me, you don't release their numbers if there's something to hide. If they really are doing so well, why wouldn't they just release the numbers to prove it? But it's a money thing, because if it's so successful, maybe they have to pay more, right? A lot of interesting deals and how Netflix works, but it'll be interesting to see in the next couple of years as the streaming wars really start, how they'll net out. What do you think? If any thoughts on this, down in the comments below, please chime in or hit me up on social media as usual. And always, please subscribe, hit that little notification bell, as well as the subscription box to stay alerted to all future videos. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you soon.